After a successful liftoff and separation from Falcon 9 back on March 14th, Crew-10 made their way on board Dragon to the International Space Station and completed a 148-day mission in space. NASA astronauts McClain and Nichole Ayers conducted one spacewalk during their 5 months in space on May 1st, relocating a space station communications antenna and the initial mounting bracket installation steps for an IROSA, or International Space Station Rollout Solar Array, that will arrive on a future SpaceX Commercial Resupply Services mission. With their full-duration mission coming to an end, the crew began packing up their personal items for their return to Earth about a week ago and worked through tasks and shared lessons learned with Crew-11 teams as they arrived to the space station a few days ago.
Their journey home began when they closed the hatch to Dragon and undocked from the space station at 3:15 p.m. Pacific or 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, August 8th. After 4 successful departure burns and a phasing burn to line up their orbit, and Nichole, Takuya, and Kirill rested for a few hours before waking up to prepare for re-entry this morning. Dragon performed an approximately 17.5-minute long deorbit burn to send Dragon on a path home. That burn ended at 7:57 a.m. Pacific Time, 10:57 a.m. Eastern, and this was followed by trunk separation and Dragon's final on-orbit maneuver, closing of the nose cone at 8:02 a.m. Pacific Time, 11:02 a.m. Eastern. The spacecraft re-entered the Earth's atmosphere and slowed its descent with successful deployments of 2 drogue parachutes and 4 mains, with the final splashdown occurring off the coast of San Diego, California at 8:33 a.m. Pacific Time or 11:33 a.m. Eastern. In spacecraft.
And we did just hear confirmation that the claw separation has been completed, and that trunk separation should be taking place in about 30 seconds from now.
And I was mentioning you were seeing McClain use her tablets. They have the displays inside of Dragon to monitor the vehicle, but they have those tablets to follow along with very specific procedures.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trunk jettison.
SpaceX Dragon copies nominal trunk jettison. We see entry prep.
And the crew there on your screen rotating in their seats in preparation for that splashdown. During that re-entry, they are leaning more on their backs, but when they are coming in for splashdown, they can sit a little bit more upright in preparation for that touchdown.
And on your screen from left to right is Roscosmos cosmonaut Kirill Peskov, NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers.
Brace for drogue window.
NASA astronaut McClain and JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi.
There are those 2 drogue
Visual
shoots.
and 2 healthy drogues.
Copy healthy drogues. Copy healthy drogues.
And a great live view from the spacecraft itself, seeing those 2 healthy drogues deployed.
And the spacecraft has now slowed down to less than 200 kilometers per hour, and it is now just over 2 kilometers above the water as it prepares for splashdown, and we should have that main parachute deploy in just a few moments to continue slowing the spacecraft down to about 16 miles per hour at the time of splashdown.
There's the main chutes deployed. They're going to open up here shortly.
Main chute descent rate nominal.
And we do have confirmation and a visual view.
Dragon copies. 1,000 meters. 1,000 meters.
And
We copy 1,000 meters.
And there's a great look of the Dragon Endurance spacecraft as it makes its way to its splashdown site off the coast of California under those 4 main parachutes that have now deployed, and about 900 meters away from the water surface.
Dragon, 800 meters. Dragon, 800 meters.
800 meters.
Crew monitoring their altitude as they make their way to splashdown. I love these daytime views that we get. We don't always get to pick the time when the crew splashes down, but it's awesome when we have a great morning and a clear view, watching as the Dragon Endurance spacecraft carrying Crew-10 is
SpaceX Dragon, 600 meters. SpaceX Dragon, 600 meters.
I copy 600 meters.
we're just 600 meters away from splashdown.
SpaceX Dragon, 400 meters. SpaceX Dragon, 400 meters. Splashdown. Brace for splashdown.
SpaceX copies 400 meters and crew are braced for splashdown.
And there we can see another live look of the Dragon Endurance spacecraft carrying Crew-10 back home to Earth following their 5-month mission, moments away from splashdown.
SpaceX Dragon, splashdown. SpaceX Dragon, happy sailors.
SpaceX copies splashdown.
And we did just hear that confirmation of splashdown. The view that you're seeing on your screen is a little bit delayed, which is why we don't have that visual confirmation yet, but we do have that verbal confirmation between the crew and the Corps that they have successfully splashed down, and Dragon Endurance has now returned home. And there is that live look of Dragon Endurance as it sits on top of the ocean off the coast of San Diego, California.
Dragon, SpaceX, we see the onboard for Power 1 28-volt converter. No crew action required at this time. Stand by for more words.
And upon detection of landing, Dragon does automatically release the main parachutes to prevent wind from pulling the spacecraft. And then Dragon automatically safes any pyrotechnics still present on the vehicle and may automatically perform additional minor system reconfigurations. The astronauts do remain seated and in their suits at this point, but the onboard air conditioning keeps things temperate inside the spacecraft, and the communication systems on board remain powered so the crew can continue to communicate.
We did hear a call that lift is under 5 minutes away, and you could see the recovery teams as they're rigging up the spacecraft, getting ready to hoist it up. And you could see a recovery team member standing on the outside of the Dragon spacecraft, helping to prepare the vehicle for that lift.
And so you can see that line that is connected from the recovery ship onto Dragon as it tugs its way in, and that recovery crew member making its way to the top of the Dragon Endurance spacecraft. And again, that recovery member is up there as part of the preparation for the lifting of the spacecraft onto the recovery vessel. They are there so that they can physically attach.
Brace for capsule lift.
I still think that's one of the best jobs.
Copy, cruise brace.
So they have physically attached those hoist rings and connected the lifting lines, and now they are preparing to lift the Dragon Endurance spacecraft onto the Shannon recovery boat momentarily. And you did just see that live look of the recovery member as he jumped off of the spacecraft and into the Pacific Ocean and is now back on one of the fast boats. And those fast boats were some of the initial recovery ships or recovery vehicles out at the splashdown location.
And again, we heard those comms to the crew, notifying them to prepare for the lift. Again, they can't see very much outside of the spacecraft, so knowing what operations are happening helps them understand what those moves that they're feeling are, so they know what to expect.
That basket there at the end of the ship, where the dragon's egg, or dragon's nest, is what it's known as. And then about 10 minutes or so from then, it'll be ready for hatch open. And you do see that lift is now underway as the Dragon Endurance spacecraft makes its way onto the recovery ship, the Shannon, that is staged off the coast of San Diego, California, following splashdown of the Dragon Endurance and the Crew-10 astronauts currently aboard. the Crew-10.
Stand by for side hatch opening and egress.
So that hatch on the Dragon Endurance spacecraft is now open, and they will be assisted out of the spacecraft. That is completely normal. And then from there, they will go just a few steps and to do some additional medical checkouts. Egress here in just a moment. And the first Crew-10 crew member has now successfully egressed or exited the capsule. And that is NASA astronaut Anne McClain. She looks very excited to be back on Earth, given a arm pump. And then the second Crew-10 crew member has successfully egressed the capsule, and that is NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers. So both NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nichole Ayers have successfully egressed or exited the capsule. And then this was the first space flight for NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers, who was the second to exit the spacecraft. So she now has 148 days in space. And we do now see JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi has exited the spacecraft. And this was also the second space flight for Onishi. So across his 2 missions, he has now totaled 263 days in space. So we are Takuya Onishi. So the egress of Roscosmos cosmonaut Kirill Peskov is now underway, and you can see him making his way out of the spacecraft right now. And there you have Roscosmos cosmonaut Kirill Peskov waving as he takes his final or initial steps on Earth. And he will now be taken back to some additional medical checks. And with that, all 4 Crew-10 crew members are safely back on Earth. They have all egressed. And so now that NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nichole Ayers, along with JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi and Roscosmos cosmonaut Kirill Peskov, are safely back home on planet Earth and getting checked out by the NASA medical team, we are going to go ahead and wrap up our live coverage of their return.